can you hear me? I'm just trying can you hear me? Otherwise I will try to call up again. I can see you, but I cannot hear you. Now there is some sound.
Yeah, it's an echo.
But there is a lot of background noise as where I think there might be some microphones that are bouncing back, but try to see if we can hear. How is it? Can you hear me?
Ingrid, we can hear you clear and loud.
Okay, because okay, so I will start. And now it's also fine. So maybe it's closed off in your end. So a very good afternoon to all of you. And I'm very unhappy I can't be with you today because we have another meeting here in the office about our Decent Work Country Program, which I need to attend. But I'm happy that we now are able to do it on a virtual way. And I'm also very happy that my colleague, Dr. Faisal Iqbal, is there. So hopefully it will work out. I understand from what you have sent, and thanks very much for inviting us. I understand that it is a 3-day training course where you have gone to discuss also time management, stress management, etc. And you will have to tell me if that's not the case. How many? I don't know exactly how many are in the programs. I can see 4 or 5 but there are probably many more. And I suppose that you are from some of the companies in Karachi or Sindh. The stress management, stress, and all these, you can say what we call psychosocial hazard and risk factors. They are part and parcel of our working life. They have been there for many years, but I think during recent years, or at least you can say during the past couple of decades, there have been much more focus on them. And and they are very much part of the decent work agenda. And decent work, of course, means and this is the overall goal of the ILO. Decent work means basically to be able to live, to earn a living in conditions of freedom, equity, security, and human dignity. And you heard security, safety also, as we would often call it. And so safety and health, under which typically you would say stress and the other forms of psychosocial hazards would fall, is part of the decent work. And in some way, we also deal with it. In many ways, I would say, we in the ILO and also many countries are dealing with it in similar fashion as we would deal with other safety and health issues, those we know so well, a unsafe machine or a loud noise or poor conditions, etc. But it's as I said, it's more recently it's sort of come to the forefront. I think that one of the factors that have prompted that is the cost of these conditions at the workplaces. At the front, well, nobody is necessarily dying here now like you have in mines or in other construction work where you see fatalities. But actually the cost of having a poor working environment in terms of psychosocial hazards, stress or other, I will come back to that, can have a significant impact on you can say, the whole working life, but also the productivity, and at the bottom line of the you can say the bottom line of the company company's profit, and in turns possibilities for employment, providing employment to people, has greatly also been researched much more than before. And in some countries, they have found out, I mean, it's actually possible to, for instance, almost half the absence if the working environment in terms of psychosocial hazards are addressed. Of course, it can depend also from sector to sector. So what do we actually mean when we are talking about stress? Because stress is maybe a little bit a buzzword. It's a popular word. We talk about that all the time. But stress factors, and I'm sure you have been discussing that, but it's a very broad spectrum one, as a where it can be partly due to, you can say, the work environment, but the work environment is both as a, you can say, job content. It's maybe sometimes we have too much job to do, then we become stressed of not being able to do the work. But it's also, and you see that sometimes, where people, as a persons at the workplace, have too little to do, and also there you can have stress can come. So it's both as where you have as a too much, too little. It can also be how work is organized. Maybe it's there's a lot of hierarchy, and it's difficult to actually find out who's making decisions or not, what to do and what not to do. It can be the culture. Also these days, okay, now I see you. These days also, we talk about as what we call harassment, sexual harassment, etc. So it's something to do we people at the workplaces interact. And you would know that it's sometimes easier to sort of a machine. Okay, you can find out, is it dangerous? We can put a guard on, etc. But how do we, and we can see it with our eyes. But when we talk about as a for instance, harassment and interaction between people, it's much more difficult. As some of you might know, but otherwise I can tell that I used to be a labor inspector in my own country, Denmark. And when you come out to workplaces, you can see whether there is a dangerous machine. You can also see if they are working with chemicals that could be dangerous. You can look at the bottle, or you can say bottles, or the cans they are in. But it's much more difficult to see on people. You can't see it whether they are actually happy at work. You have to find out much more. And then it's also relations between persons, and that's not so simple. But it can also be external factors. One of the sectors where we typically see also where stress can be, or where psychosocial hazards is, for instance, in the care sector, where there are people are wanting the care, they need the care, but so also maybe not always there's different demands. You cannot fulfill all their demands. They may be sick, etc. So it's not easy. So all these kind of things is coming to the workplaces. And how do we also in the ILO recommend that we deal with them? Yeah, often as we say, it should be reviewed similar to also other safety and health issues. So that means that the first thing we will do is that we will identify the hazards. So we need to identify the hazards, and for when we talk about stress, we need to also look at what are there. We need to talk with people, etc., so that we find out of that. And then we need to assess the risk, who's impacted by it, to which extent, what is the consequences, and what is the consequences, what's the likelihood. So, risk is about the consequences of the hazard and the likelihood. And once we know the risk, whether it's high or medium or low, then we can, especially if it's medium and high, we can start addressing it and finding out together what is the best solution. And it's not sure that it's only one solution. There might be many solutions to it also. So this is the way we will address it. And for instance, if there is too much work, we will maybe have to organize the work differently. Maybe we have to reduce also the time or doing such work, or we have to see what is the best. Maybe we have to even sometimes get more people to do. More difficult can be also, how do we handle each other? How do we interact? And here sometimes we know that a good policy, a clear policy that is known to everybody in the organization or at the workplace, for instance, how we deal with harassment or sexual harassment. So that we both as managers and workers are clear about what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And also a clear process for, if it occurs, where to turn to, whom to tell it, what to do with it, and how, so they can be picked up and reacted to. So these kind of clear policies, and obviously then if they occur, then they also need to be dealt with in an adequate and I would say swift manner. But it's not a judgment, it's not sort of a ad hoc judgment. As for any other hazard and risk, we need to also find out what's up and down in it, so that we can, and what is the best solution. So that's the way we are dealing with that. So one of the recommendations I would do is that look at it as you are looking at safety and health. So identify the hazard, assess the risk, and find out in a tripartite, bipartite between the employers and workers and those who have at the workplaces, find out what is the best solution to handle this. Please also do that before the things happens, because then they are much more difficult to handle. It's much easier to sort of set a policy before it's actually there. So this is part of what the ILO is doing also when we talk about safety and health. And when we are training or we are doing advisory services, policy advice, so we are encouraging that is part of it. And that is to whether it is the government, whether it's the Department of Labor, Ministry of Labor, or when you are doing, for instance, new safety and health laws, it's the time to look at that. Then it's good also to look at workers, what can they do as liaise with trade unions? How can they work with it, bring awareness among their members? Similar with the employers, how can they actually work on that? Maybe the employers organization can also do something to bring awareness among their members. But also you are one of the training institutions, NILAT, and I'm happy to see that you are actually doing also, I know you do a lot of training, and we are happy to also see that, because bringing more awareness about that, bringing more knowledge to the Pakistani enterprises, be it on stress management, time management, but be it also on other matters like dispute resolution, on skills development, at least in those that you can do in your facilities, etc., is very important. So social dialogue and that thing, there's a need of that. So we're really happy to see also that you are doing that. And I see there are a number of people, and I'm happy also to see that you have both men and women. Thanks for doing that, and keep doing that. I also want to mention about a particular stress that we see maybe in these times, We have all heard about the COVID-19. And I am sure that in many, both at many workplaces and also at many families, this brings additional stress to you. Could I risk contracting the disease? What would happen if I or some of my families are getting it? Will I be able to afford going to the hospital? Can I get a place at the hospital, etc.? What to do in the workplace? What is if my colleague is infected? What do I know? Where is he or she going? And these are also things that they quite a number of advice coming out. The ILO is dealing with that, and we are issuing a number of advice because we need to deal with it, but we should not create panic. We now become better and better to also handle the disease. It's still a very serious disease, but we should be we should deal with it in a rational way. That means that employers and workers at the workplaces should come together, or trade unions if they are there, and the employers come together and discuss how do we address COVID-19 and the fear, and you can say the risk of COVID-19 in our businesses. How do we implement the key recommendations so as to keep distance from each other, so as to ensure that we have a high hygiene as a cleaning of the things we are touching. And when we cannot avoid coming closer to each other, we also look at the wearing of masks, etc. These are things that we need to put in place, and they will be differently fleshed out at the different workplaces. So this is a particular stress factor that comes in at the workplaces. And I know that the ILO have been issuing a lot of different materials. Just to say that, I will share that with NILAT, and maybe they can share with it later on. In 2016, there are quite a number of materials at the ILO website, the website on safety and health, and I will share that with you, and also with you, Faisal, you may have it. And a couple of documents that may be useful for you would be on the document that was issued to the Safety and Health Day in 2016, and it was indeed about workplace stress, and that it is a collective challenge. And then there's also some guidelines for specific sector. And then the other document I will refer to is a very sort of easy to use one, is called the checkpoints, and it provides a lot of good advice about what is stress and how can we deal with it. So I would really recommend that you consult that. And stress, unfortunately, doesn't seem to be something that is fading away immediately. So therefore, also when we talk about the future of work, when we discuss about what will our future workplaces look like, even if we have to work from home, do we then also encourage? Do we then encounter more stress? Maybe that where we have both to be at home, work from home. It's very nice maybe if it's a day or two, but if we always have it, there are children, there are our parents, there are our sisters, brothers who are there. They all want maybe our attention. It's very difficult to maybe deliver what we should actually be doing. So it's definitely something that I think that we will be faced with in the future to come. And therefore, this is also part and parcel of when we talk about the future of work and what would it entail. Okay, so you already mentioned the resources. Thanks very much, Faisal. So I think that I would close here, and at least I thank you very much, and I hope that the 3 days you have gone through, I'm sure that have been very valuable. Not only what you have learned technically, but perhaps also the exchange you have had in your tea breaks, etc., to also discuss, because sometimes it may sort of be very difficult to actually sort of maybe as a what what happens at other workplaces. But when we speak together and we find out, you have experienced that. Okay, we are doing it like this, etc. Then this can be very valuable. So I think I would leave you here, and also I know it's not as I would have wished I could have been there, but thanks very much, and I wish you all a very good afternoon, and also a continuation or finalization of the course. So last but not least, I want to also thank NILAT for inviting us. Thanks also for you organizing this, and we appreciate much that what you are doing, and helping the businesses and the workplaces in Sind, I believe, to actually become better and be address safety and health, including the psychosocial factors better. So wishing you all a very good end, and I hope that you will be able to go back and use it. Thanks very much.